But when Rehoboam was firmly established and strong, he abandoned the law of the Lord, and all Israel followed him in this sin. Because they were unfaithful to the Lord, King Shishak of Egypt came up and attacked Jerusalem in the 5th year of King Rehoboam's reign. Then the leaders of Israel and the king humbled themselves and said, "The Lord is right in doing this to us." Because Rehoboam humbled himself, the Lord's anger was turned away, and he did not destroy him completely. There were still some good things in the land of Judah. I feel like this sentence right here is meant to kind of say, all right, yes, you're hearing about all this bad stuff that happened, but there's still some good stuff. It's still not as bad as we find it today. The exiles would have looked at, the land where they came from and probably seen just absolute devastation. It definitely wasn't to that point yet. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. So now we are looking at 2 Chronicles chapter 12. Previous chapter involved Rehoboam as king over the recently split Judah and Benjamin, separate from the rest of Israel, because they had rebelled, or they had asked for easing of taxes and labor. Rehoboam said he would do the opposite, so they decided to crown another guy king over their tribes. But then it turns out that king wasn't really worshiping the Lord, nor did he want the people worshiping the Lord, because that might send them back to Jerusalem, where they would potentially then side with Judah and Benjamin, and basically that, people shifting from the rest of Israel to Judah and Benjamin would weaken Jeroboam's standing as king over the other tribes. But, Rehoboam, for his part, just, he actually wanted to regain control of the other tribes, but God said, no, this was my doing. I prophesied that this would happen. Don't fight them. So instead, he fortifies various towns within his own kingdom, and yeah, that's kind of the basic summary of the past couple of chapters. So, here we go. 2 Chronicles, chapter 12. But when Rehoboam was firmly established and strong, he abandoned the law of the Lord, and all Israel followed him in this sin. Because they were unfaithful to the Lord, King Shishak of Egypt came up and attacked Jerusalem in the 5th year of King Rehoboam's reign. He came with 1,200 chariots, 60,000 horses, and a countless army of foot soldiers, including Libyans, Sukkites, and Ethiopians. Shishak conquered Judah's fortified towns and then advanced to attack Jerusalem. The prophet Shemaiah then met with Rehoboam and Judah's leaders, who had all fled to Jerusalem because of Shishak. Shemaiah told them, "This is what the Lord says. You have abandoned me, so I am abandoning you to Shishak." Okay, pausing there for a bit. So, like we read in plenty of other places in the Bible, Judges as a prime example, even when God's chosen people think that they've got things well enough established that they don't really need God to protect them or help them in any significant way, they turn away from worshiping the Lord. So, likewise, Rehoboam here turns away from the Lord, and as king then kind of leads other people throughout his kingdom to follow suit. God's not happy with that. So, Shishak then comes and attacks, and it winds up in plenty of losses for Rehoboam and the kingdom of Judah. It says he came with 1,200, which, by the way, I almost read as 12,000 chariots, and 60,000 horses. The note there could be read as charioteers or horsemen. Either way, it was, either way, it was sort of part of the incoming army for the attack. This is just like noting different possibilities of the translation. And note there at Ethiopians, Hebrew says Cushites instead. It may not have been known as Ethiopia in that time, but it's supposed to be the same area, I'm pretty sure. So Shemaiah basically spells it out for Rehoboam and the leaders that y'all are getting attacked because you've turned away from the Lord. So he has allowed this to happen. Okay, on to verse 6. Then the leaders of Israel and the king humbled themselves and said, "The Lord is right in doing this to us." When the Lord saw their change of heart, he gave this message to Shemaiah. "Since the people have humbled themselves, I will not completely destroy them and will soon give them some relief. I will not use Shishak to pour out my anger on Jerusalem, but they will become his subjects, so they will know the difference between serving me and serving earthly rulers." So King Shishak of Egypt came up and attacked Jerusalem. He ransacked the treasuries of the Lord's temple and the royal palace. He stole everything, including all the gold shields Solomon had made. King Rehoboam later replaced them with bronze shields as substitutes, and he entrusted them to the care of the commanders of the guard who protected the entrance to the royal palace. Whenever the king went to the temple of the Lord, the guards would also take the shields and then return them to the guard room. Because Rehoboam humbled himself, the Lord's anger was turned away, and he did not destroy him completely. There were still some good things in the land of Judah. Interesting how it specifies there were still some good things in the land of Judah. I can't help but imagine. So, 1st and 2nd Chronicles is Ezra kind of recapping the history of the Israelites to those in exile. And I feel like this sentence right here is meant to kind of say, all right, yes, you're hearing about all this bad stuff that happened, but there's still some good stuff. It's still not as bad as we find it today. Or it still wasn't as bad. Anyway, grammar, semantics. But, yeah, so since they had it spelled out to them, the leaders of Israel changed their hearts. And because of that change of heart toward the Lord, then the Lord lessens the punishment, I guess. Rather than being utterly destroyed, the people, I guess Jerusalem is then more like, I don't know if subjugated is quite the right word, but at least temporarily put under the rule of Shishak, who, by the way, takes a bunch of valuable things from the temple and the treasuries, and so there was a significant drop in the wealth as well for, Rehoboam's kingdom. And it's already a drastic shift from the continued increase of wealth that the kingdom saw under his father, Solomon. So yeah, already significant downturn, but it's not all bad yet. The exiles would have looked at, the land where they came from and probably seen just absolute devastation. It definitely wasn't to that point yet. I guess we'll pick things up in verse 13 here. King Rehoboam firmly established himself in Jerusalem and continued to rule. He was 41 years old when he became king, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city the Lord had chosen from among all the tribes of Israel as the place to honor his name. Rehoboam's mother was Naamah, a woman from Ammon, but he was an evil king, for he did not seek the Lord with all his heart. The rest of the events of Rehoboam's reign, from beginning to end, are recorded in the record of Shemaiah the prophet and the record of Iddo the seer, which are part of the genealogical record. Rehoboam and Jeroboam were continually at war with each other. When Rehoboam died, he was buried in the city of David. Then his son Abijah became the next king. And that's actually the end of the chapter already. So it's like, yeah, even though he started off worshiping the Lord, and after falling away for a little while and getting attacked, changes his tune towards God, at least for a little while. Overall, he didn't really seek God throughout his reign as king. Certainly not to the extent that he should have. And because of this, verse 14 describes him as an evil king. Like, maybe not so much evil in the way we would tend to think of evil as, like, mwahaha, I'm going to plan all these vicious things against people. Then again, he did say that he was going to increase the harsh labor and the taxes from what they were under Solomon, so maybe he wasn't great on that front either. But the main factor is that he didn't seek the Lord with all his heart. That's the reason why it says he was an evil king. And especially if you're going to be a riler of God's people, then yeah, that should be the main qualifier. Now it mentions he and Jeroboam constantly being at war, so I guess eventually there was, a move away from God's command on that front. Because God had said earlier, just in the last chapter actually, do not attack your relatives, fellow Israelites. But they fought against each other at some point. So, yeah, there's the recap of Rehoboam's reign. It, would not call that good. Definitely a significant downgrade from Solomon's time as king. And that's where things really started to move towards what the exiles would have known the kingdom, or at least the land that their ancestors inhabited, to be like. By the time they're hearing this, they would have seen absolute devastation looking around what was the Promised Land. But still not that bad yet. Getting there, though. In fact, I almost wonder if that sentence was put in there purely to kind of say, like, okay, yeah, this sounds really, really bad, and it is, but this is not the worst that it gets. Anyway, yeah. So, I guess that's it for 2 Chronicles chapter 12. So, last chapter, Rehoboam was preparing for war, but I don't think he was expecting war against Egypt, but also B, he was not preparing in the most crucial way, which was, continuing to worship the Lord and dedicate his life to following God's commands. So, Egypt invades, bunch of stuff is lost, but then he has a change of heart, turns back to God, and that eases up. But that's all we get of Rehoboam, with 1st and 2nd Chronicles being more recap of previous events. It's probably going to shorten some things, possibly adding a few more details than before, but more likely going to shorten certain stories. But yeah, that's what we get for this chapter. As always, like the video if you enjoyed it, share it with others if you want them to see. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description for links to social media pages, Discord server, supporter page, everything you might want to go to follow what I'm doing and interact in any potential way you can think of. At least that's currently available. Speaking of interactions, though, you can go down to the comment section to leave your thoughts or questions. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video, but whatever the case is, until next time, stay cool, people.